Good evening.
Hey,
Good evening.
hey,
Hello.
hi.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to another
Hi.
episode, L.O.V.E Flow TV. We are back from our
Yes.
Yes.
summer vacation.
Hey,
Yay.
Yeah.
y'all.
Hey,
Hey,
Yeah.
y'all. It's
hey.
Saturday
Officially.
night.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to say
Saturday
that.
night.
Yeah, it's
Just got
Saturday
paid.
night.
Hey.
So we are
And I
excited to be
feel
here.
all right.
We have a special guest this evening as well. We'll bring her on in a moment. We have Coach Lisa Beckwith, and when she comes on, she'll tell you a
Yay.
little bit about herself. But we are going to start with my co-host. Let's start with Dion. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself for those who are watching for the very first time to find out a little bit
Hey,
about who
good
you are. Then we'll go to
evening.
Kenya, Kimberly, and back to me.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I am Dion Selby. I am a certified life coach. I coach personal development in the community. I do community events, and I also sell insurance. And I also have the Rebirth Journal for healing on Amazon. So that's me.
Beautiful. I'm Kenya Thompson, owner of Word Crumbs. I am an educator. I'm a producer, part-time TV host, and also a speaker.
Yes. Happy Saturday, everybody. I am Kimberly McGee. Hashtag the dancing planner. I own a management firm and I do everything that you can consider checked off your list in management. We can do it logistics. I'm also a speaker as well as a dancer and a co-host here at Love and Flow.
Yay! All right. And then I'm Kimberly Wimborne. I'm truly excited about this night. I am the founder of Kimberly Wimborne LLC, which is my for profit. And then my nonprofit is Beauty 180 Inc., which works with women who are in transition that have been disenfranchised. I am a financial strategist and I certified burial plan specialist in final expense as well as financial certified instructor, certified financial education instructor. I said that backwards. So we are excited to be here. We are excited
Certified,
to be here. I'm
certified.
also the author of a book called The Dead Detox. So I do a lot of facilitating and training. So if you could please go ahead and share out. I know it's Saturday night, but grab a friend, go ahead and share out on your pages. We really
Yes, like and
appreciate that. And
share.
just hashtag love and flow if you could do that whenever you share it out. Just go on and share it to all of your groups and all of your pages. All right, so we're going to pass the baton over to our guest to join us. And her name is Lisa Beckwith. Lisa, Coach Lisa Beckwith. If you follow her on Facebook, it's always Coach Lisa. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Lisa, and welcome to Love and Flow.
Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be on this wonderful platform. I always listen to you guys, and it's really powerful to be here today. Um, Again, my name is Lisa W. Beckwith. I am a certified life coach. During the day, I am a educator. I've been teaching for over 12 years, and I enjoy educating children, impacting their lives, inspiring them, and partnering with their parents and the community. I am a published author of 7 books. My first baby is called Food for Life. I love her. Um, I didn't know I was an author. And from that book stemmed the other 6 or 7 that God has placed on my heart to write. And let's see, being a life coach, I love to inspire people. I love to hear their stories and help them to align themselves up with what they're wanting for themselves. So that's who I am.
Yay.
7 books, though.
Yes,
That's
right?
a lot. That's a lot of writing. Kudos to you. I can only put one out. So,
Feel like
Thank
I've been at
you.
this for
I,
a minute.
yeah, and I
right.
like I like to add I've known her since we were 16 years old.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't realize
She was one of the first girls I met when I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina.
that. Oh,
Oh, wow. And
Mhm.
from
That's
one
my
life
girl.
coach to another. Hey, girl. Hey.
I love it. Love it.
Hello.
Yes.
It was an
We
honor
love
meeting
to.
you, Dion. I
Yeah,
remember
I
the
know.
time we met, and
Me
that was
too.
very impactful. And we're still here today, so I'm
We're still
excited
here
about that.
today.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, we love to start the show off in prayer, so Kimberly's gonna guide us in that, and then we're gonna jump right into this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to come to you and use our gifts and talents to impact the world, Father God. We just thank you for your blessings. We thank you for your protection. And we also pray for this nation. We pray for this world that we will love each other and accept each other with kindness and with a gentle spirit and heart. Amen.
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 Amen. So on point
Amen.
with
That
what we're
was
talking
that
about.
was
This
such a sweet prayer. It was so
it
It
was very
sweet.
was.
sweet.
Yeah.
So tonight we are gonna dive right in. We have so much to talk about. So much has
Yes.
happened even over the last week. Oh my goodness! So
Oh
we are
my
going to
gosh.
get right into it, talking about this evening the intersectionality of a Black woman in
Mm-hmm.
America. And so let me define what that means. And so basically, the intersectionality of a Black woman in America is the racism and sexism that overlaps and intersects in the Black woman's life. And so we are going to dive into various scenarios and topics around that. But also, we're going to talk about some exciting things and some powerful movements that have taken place, dealing with accomplishments, things we have overcome, cancellation, because we're in this cancel culture. And so let's dive right in. First of all, the woman king. We're going to get into that right after we highlight this powerful woman, Cheryl Lee Ralph, and her speech, I
Yes.
Am
Wow.
Endangered Species.
Mhm.
Interspecies. Ah,
Did y'all watch the Emmys?
I did.
Mhm.
I
I
did.
Woo.
Yeah.
didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
What about you in the
No.
audience? Did you anybody watch the Emmys? If you watched the Emmys, tell us in the comments, what did you think of Cheryl Lee Ralph's speech? And for those who didn't, I didn't watch all of the Emmys, but I definitely Kimberly shared it, and then it was just buzzing all over the news.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so are
Yeah.
we are we showing are we talking about that or showing the clip first?
I think we should show the clip for those who hadn't
That's what I
seen it. I
think
don't see
too.
how you
Yeah.
couldn't. I don't know how
Right.
you
Yeah,
couldn't
I
but
saw
still.
that even though I didn't see the
Yeah.
Emmys, I did see
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
All right. So let's run that clip of Cheryl Lee Ralph's. Uh,
I am an endangered species, but I sing no victim song. I am a woman, I am an artist, and I know where my voice belongs. To anyone who has ever had a dream and thought your dream wouldn't, couldn't come true, I am here to tell you that this is what believing looks like. This is what striving looks like. And don't you ever give up on you, because if you get a Quinta Brunson in your corner,
Yay.
that was
Yes.
so
So
powerful. I get
powerful.
chills.
That's so
Yeah.
Yeah,
powerful.
so powerful. It sounded also like a hymn, like a
Yeah.
Negro
Mhm.
Well,
spiritual
well,
hymn.
Endangered
Yeah.
Species is actually a song by Diana Reeves, and
Oh.
and I remember I actually was part of a dance group that we danced to that song, and it was back in 19 because my daughter is nine. She was born in 93, so that song has to be in the early 90s, 91, 90.
Wow.
It was on the jazz list, like the Afro jazz list. And I
Mhm.
remember we danced to that song, a part of it, because it was blended with other songs. And even then, when we did it with Dr. Margaret Douglas, and Kimberly, you know who that is. I danced with her, and even then, the song is a very powerful song.
Mhm.
So when she bolted that out, I watched it live, and I was in tears. First of all, the whole night with Lizzo, and the whole night was just celebrating the power of women, but women of
Mhm.
color. I just
Mhm.
it was a magical moment. It really was.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, even like I said, I didn't watch the Emmys, but I watched all the clips. We covered it on Black Issues, and it was just so powerful. Number one, to finally see someone gain the respect and the like the acknowledgement that she deserved for so long, finally,
Mm-hmm.
and then her ability to just convey
Mm-hmm.
her pride, her joy, and there's something about Black hymns. I'm sorry, you
Mm-hmm.
can't help but to feel and have some
Mm-hmm.
emotion just simply because
Mhm.
of how our
Mhm.
Yeah.
music is. But it was a
Yeah.
beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just love how she just tapped into it being like a personal,
Hmm.
a personal journey that I feel like anybody or everybody could relate to. It's like if you
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
have a dream, you can put yourself in that, in that position of feeling like you've had some things that you've had to overcome. You may have had some doors closed, you may have had some
Yeah.
no's, but look at her, and she says that, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And at 65, she didn't give
Mhm.
up. She kept pursuing. And I know, Dion, you were saying how that whole trajectory sort of reminded you of that video you had shared with us. Can you
Yeah,
expound on that?
what'd you say? I'm sorry, I missed that last part. Can you repeat that, Kimberly? I couldn't hear what you said.
I think she's frozen. Just go ahead
I
and
think
talk
she's
about that
frozen.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too, before we go on to that, is giving Quinta Bronson, like, she is to win the outstanding writer as
Hmm.
a Black female in the Emmys. I mean, let's not look over that. Quentin
Yep.
Bronson is doing her thing. I mean, and then Lizzo,
Yeah.
for
I
Lizzo
was
to
so happy
win.
for her.
I was
Yeah.
so happy for her. And one of the things I loved that we talked, everybody was moved by Cheryl Lee's speech, but Lizzo's speech was also very touching because she
Hmm.
talked about representation and being full
Mhm.
figured and not seeing anybody that ever
Mm.
But see,
met without being in a role of somebody that plays in a more domestic role.
mhm.
Yeah.
Lizzo has
Yeah.
always been talking about it though, so I'm glad that she received the award because this year, actually over the pandemic, really, she was under a lot of scrutiny for outfits and various
Hmm.
things. And so to see
Hmm.
her win this role and to be acknowledged in that way was also, I think, a very beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So just
Yeah,
speaking
Yeah. And
about
I,
about powerful women, we talked about earlier just, just the fact that one of the other huge things that's going on right now is all the talk about the Woman King. Did you guys see
yes.
that
I
movie?
haven't
Oh my
seen it yet,
God.
so
It
don't give
is
any
not
just
spoilers.
yet.
so,
Fabulous.
so, 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 so
Fabulous.
amazing. It is amazing.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I
Amazing
may go
on so many
tomorrow.
levels.
Yeah.
So
It is a must
what did
see.
y'all think? What were some of the thoughts that you had as you were like leaving? Because I mean, the main thing is the inspiration of, the all Black, all African woman army. So did you feel empowered, inspired? How did you all feel, and how did everybody feel watching when you left the movie?
For me, I stay for the credits because I want to see who's actually making the decisions behind a movie like that. So I always stay for the credits. So to see a woman writer, a woman director, a woman screenwriter, 5 women executive producers, a woman, what was it? Costume designer was a
Mhm.
woman, visual effects, female, casting director, female. I counted, you only had 7 men out of entire
Wow.
production
That's
of women.
crazy.
I
Wow.
sat there to the very end and
I
I
know.
was counting, waiting for a man's name to pop. I was like, oh, that's one. Okay, that's two. So it was like 7 out of an entire
Yeah, yeah,
production cast. And I was so proud. And just to see women, like, I was like, visual effects, a female, like
yeah,
director of
yeah.
visual effects, the scores, women designed the scores to these songs. Like, it was just amazing to see. It was
Amazing.
so
Yeah.
proud to see
It was so
all of these.
amazing.
And
And I
Viola
don't know if you
Davis is one of the
I was
executive
just getting ready to
producers.
say Viola
Yeah.
Davis. Yeah.
Yeah.
And her
Yeah.
husband, I think, yeah, was a executive producers. And then I don't know if you guys heard just their take on everything, just basically the behind the scenes of, just how long it took to even get this movie out. They said that they were fighting for this in Hollywood for 7 years, to even be able to get this to come through because Hollywood, wasn't ready for this type of film, as far as it being so woman dominated. And then on top of that, it being Black women. But I don't know why. I mean, being as though Black women are like the largest consumers of America. So it just makes sense, the way they marketed the movie and basically the way they presented it to the audience for, the woman inspiration.
Yeah.
What about the
Did you get a chance to see it?
I have not seen it yet. My daughter and I are supposed to go tomorrow, but I did look at the trailer. And as I was looking at that, the only word that came to me was strong. Being
Mm.
able
Yeah.
to endure with that type of strength,
Yeah.
I am so honored to be a woman and a woman of color. So
Yeah.
all the talent, it really doesn't surprise me, but I am intrigued by the opportunity to see it, visually see it come to play with a lot of the setbacks that we have had to endure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so crazy. That's good you brought up the trailer. Do we have a clip of it?
We do, because I love for
Okay.
everybody to see it, just in
Yeah.
case you haven't. But here's the trailer.
Okay.
Critics are hailing the Woman King. It's the gladiator of our time.
You must kill your tears.
Viola Davis shines in the spectacular action-filled epic.
I'm going to be like her.
The Woman King, rated PG-13, now playing in theaters.
Ooh, look
Yeah.
at that. And there were some
I
really, really good scenes in there too, where
Yeah.
Viola Davis said that she was just like in the best shape of her life. She was
She looked
really doing
good.
some
She
good,
did.
Yeah.
she was doing some good fighting.
Yeah. There's a documentary behind the scenes of making The Woman King. I really encourage everybody to watch it, because the training, the martial art training and the tribal training that they received, and they had to learn dialect, which I thought was so cool. And that was months in the process and the making of it. But one of the things that Dion and I had this really in-depth conversation about, some of the backlash that it is also receiving. And I love what Viola Davis said, she's not going to take stock in what Twitterland says about the documentary, because it is dramatized. And Dion and I had this, and I think they took, and I'm just in my thoughts, it seemed like they took different moments through history dealing with the Atlantic slave trade and collaborated all of those stories. And Kenya, you would love this, because I believe there's a moment in the film that they really took from Haiti in the 1908 massacre. The 1804, I'm sorry, the 1804 massacre.
Yeah.
The 1804 massacre in Haiti. And I really believe that there's a moment in the film that really captures it. So I think it's one of those things that we can't take it literal, but there is a literal message behind it.
Yeah.
And I think
Well-
ultimately the message is just, really encouraging us to do more of that, to do more of our research and to do more of our history, because as that backlash did come out about the accuracy of some of the moments in the movie, that should just encourage us to go do the research and to go study and to do more, just to do more learning, so we can put those pieces of the movie together and actually dig up what is true and what isn't, because like you said, it's dramatized, it's a movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, you brought up Haiti, and we
Mhm.
know recently Queen Elizabeth has passed, and there's been a lot in the news about money that has now gone to King Charles, now King Charles, and some of the reparations that are owed and due. And there's, if you want to pull up that clip where we talk about the world's largest diamond, the Cullinan diamond, was stolen from South Africa and pieces put on the British sovereign crown, royal scepter, and the rest of the royal jewel collection. The British claim that the world's largest diamond were given to them as a symbol of friendship and peace, yet it was during colonialism.
Mhm.
And then if we want to go to the CNN clip with Don Lemon, we'll talk about a little bit about that money that's being passed on to Prince,
Yeah.
now King Charles.
King
So you
Charles.
want to play that clip?
All of this wealth, and you hear about it, comes as England is facing rising costs of living, a living crisis, austerity budget cuts, and so on. And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And when across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely. That's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
Whoa, that's deep.
That's deep.
really deep.
That's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Well, I think the movie, again, it's inspired by true facts. But one of the things Dion and I talked about this in detail, even though the British did abolish slavery 100 years later than Portugal and America, you still are accountable for participating in the Atlantic slave trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had Portugal, France, and then England came in as the third colonized country. France and England share just as many colonized country. Then, of course, you've got the Dutch and so on and so forth. So everybody in what we consider civilized countries, civilized country, and I use that with parentheses, all play a role. You look at the Dutch, I mean, that's South Africa, and apartheid was still in our time. I remember having protests in college about apartheid in South Africa. So it's still with us. So even though I agree with her historically, the accuracy of it, there's still an accountability to colonialism, and there's still accountability to understand the effect and the generational trauma that goes along with colonizing. And even in our country, indigenous, they were first colonized in this country. So it sounds good what she says, accuracy, in terms of Africa and the slave trading internally. But that's always been the history. If you go back to Rwanda, the Tutsis and the Hutus, like that whole tribal thing, but that was because of what? The Dutch, pulling out. So it all sounds good, but there's still an accountability. And I didn't hear that from her.
I think that her aim and purpose, was just to inform. And it's shocking to hear, but I think the truth sets us free and bring awareness to us. Based upon what you were saying, Kimberly, because you love history, and I know you go back way back. You can just dissect anything when it comes to history. But, for me to hear it, I think it's an awareness that we need to understand as we're moving forward and understanding the culture and the purpose behind all of the unforeseen words that, have been given to us throughout our entire life.
So are you guys referring to the fact that she said, some of our own people were enslaving our own people?
Well,
Like, is that what you're
I mean,
referring to?
I
well, for
am.
me,
Mhm.
well,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me, that's not new news. But
Right, right.
and
But
Lisa
what
has
were
not.
we supposed to do? I guess is what my question is. What were we supposed to do? Like, I don't know that I fault our Black ancestors for enslaving us. I mean, you kind of fall in where you have to get in order to survive, right? But we didn't create the environment or the hostility, the nature of hostility. That wasn't our creation.
No, and again,
No.
that's what I'm
Mm-mm.
saying for her.
No.
What she said was accurate factually,
Right.
but
Right.
but I felt like she was scathing over responsibility,
That and
as
that,
though the
yeah,
fact, yeah, because she kept saying, "Well, England was the first." Yeah, but England was the third civilized country to
Right.
enslave Africans.
right,
Just because
right.
they
Yeah.
offer it up, just
Doesn't
because
mean
kings and
anything.
queens offer it up as a way of trade, right? Because they
Mhm.
even deal with it in the movie. So I'm not, for those who hadn't seen it, I'm not going to ruin it for you, because I think it goes back to what Dion and I said. I think this movie does open up that conversation to say, let's look at the responsibility that our ancestors uphold, but that still doesn't qualify you to enslave generations of people with cruelty and with lack of compassion and love. Like, that
Yeah.
just doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
totally agree with
our
that.
I think our responsibility in the slave trade is also for us to look at the generational trauma. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just to look at it
Yep.
from a perspective of, like someone has said earlier, as far as, like, I think it was Lisa, that we still need to know the truth, and we still need to be able to face the truth so that we don't repeat history. We can't, in order for us to understand, where we need to go as a people, future wise, and to not allow this type of treatment to happen again, especially amongst our own people. We have to be able to face the generational trauma. So it just kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, because it's a healing. We still need healing from all that.
Right.
I mean, if you look at how it's trickled down over the generations, we still are in bondage, right? Within our own communities, we have division within Black cultures, right? I mean, we look at Haitians, I'm just take my own people, versus Africans, versus African Americans, versus those that are from Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago. There's this division of better than. There's this weight of who has the most, who looks the best, and that was not any of our doing. And so, to your point, I think that's that trauma response that keeps trickling down generation from generation to generation. But the question, like you said, is when does it really stop? I don't know when it stops or where it stops, but I don't know how we eradicate it.
So
Yeah.
here's my
I
question.
think platforms like this helps it to get to a starting point. And it helps us to become aware, because I think that's
Yeah.
the key word for us, is just
Yeah.
to become aware of things.
Mhm.
And clearly the title of your platform, Kimberly, of Love and Flow, that did not exist. We were not intended to be treated with love and kindness during that time. But now we can add that on to the wisdom and kind of diffuse the pain that we know our people went through during that process. And
Yeah.
for the lady
Mhm.
to kind of dismiss that, I'm not surprised at all, but
Mhm.
it is something to cover up once again. So
Mhm.
we have to be that voice to just remind them that we are aware of the root of the issue, but at the same time, the treatment is what we really are advocating for.
Well,
Mhm.
I want to ask a question. Knowing the truth, okay,
Mhm.
which again, it goes back to understanding tribal warfare in Africa,
Mm.
because they didn't just trade to white Europeans or colonize. They traded their own kind in other tribes for several reasons: commodity, marriage. So that's a historical point. So knowing that, I know it doesn't change the context of slavery, or my question is, does it change the context of slavery?
I don't think it does.
Like, can you explain that a little bit more when you say context? I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Does it change people's minds about, could it change people's minds about the context of slavery in terms of accountability?
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't think it does. I think it's survival. I mean, you do what you have to do in order to, again, survive, to be the fittest of the fit. And if that means that I happen to be an African with money, and in order to fit in with the colonizers, I'm going to enslave some of my own people, then guess what? I'm probably going to do that. Now, was my hand forced because I had no real control over the situation? Yes. Now, I could have made a different decision. Sure, I could have, but that likely would have meant the demise of myself and my family. And most people aren't going to make that decision.
Good point.
Yeah.
Very
And
good
it's
point.
disappointing. I think it's disappointing just to get the narrative the way we receive the narrative. So going back to Kimberly, I think it will shift the way you can look at the storyline from the slavery pathway that we know has happened. But at the end of the day, we just have to endure a better way and a better vision for it now. But it is very disappointing to know, because at the end of the day, people really are looking out for themselves, and that's the appearance to me of that tribal situation.
Well, I think it goes back to what Kenya said, and one of the things that in the movie, which is common, is they targeted the Dahomey tribe, the Dahomey tribe. And if you read about it, and I did some research before I watch a movie, because I always want to go in with, I know they're going to take liberties, but I want to educate myself. But one of the things about the Dahomey tribe, it goes back to what Kenya said, is I think they recognize the effects that the slave trade had. And Dahomey is an actual tribe. And I think there are modern day Benin, which is West Africa. And I think it's interesting when you go and watch the movie, you see what Kenya is talking about, and then also what Lisa mentioned, the mind shifting of what colonization is doing and can and what it can do to a nation and to a country of people who have been lured, misled, misguided. For various reasons, Kenya, when you talked about survival, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's one of those things that it definitely opens up the door for a really hard conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making light of this comparison, so please forgive me. But it's like when you look at social media and the impact that it has on swaying social trends and social behaviors. You fall in line where your society has allowed you to fall in line, has guided you to fall in line. And while we're talking about lives and we're talking about harsh treatment of people, there's really no difference, because it's that indoctrination of a mindset, of a mentality, and again, it's survival of the fittest.
Well, that's oppression. Isn't that the very foundation of oppression? It's the very foundation of what oppression is.
Yeah. And going back to this is probably something that Lisa can relate a lot with too, is just the education, the educational side of things, to like for this movie, for me, it was so provoking as far as learning more about that, because even though Kimberly, you said earlier that this is nothing new to you, it may be actually new to a lot of people to even have, learned this history, because it's not what we are taught in textbooks. Right. It's not what we are taught in the school system. So to learn this education was even profound.
Yeah, I agree.
So here's my question to the life coaches. Like, when you're dealing with that generational trauma and understanding what oppression is, that is such a generational thing that can be passed down. And I don't think we talk about that enough, where we're passing down oppression. We're passing down from generation to generation trauma, and not intentionally, not intentionally.
Mhm. Mhm.
One of my books, Soul Searching Education, Evolving Instructions and Developing Minds, my first chapter is Black Lives Matter. And back in time, in the 1800s, when we were allowed to be a part of the segregation and bringing the blacks and the whites together, um, a lot of the people in Virginia area refused to still allow our children to go to school with them. So it was a 5-year gap that caused our children really not to receive education. And if we think about it, taking that 5 years and dispersing it throughout this whole um, United States, 50 states, those are generational moments that people may not have received education as important. So it's not that we are not interested, it's just that it was taken away for us to be interested, and then we had to develop the European way of learning on top of that. So that was very interesting for me and very impactful, and that's why I wanted to kind of push it out there in the universe, just for us to understand, because a lot of times we go off of our emotions, but we really have to understand why we are where we are in our life and on our journey.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I'll add
Absolutely.
to that. One of the huge aspects for me to bring forth with the work that I do is the healing
Hmm.
aspect, because I really feel like the generational trauma, again, like I said earlier, is something that we will continue to repeat, amongst even each other with, the way we support one another, the way we treat one another. If we
Hmm.
don't do the work and heal, we need to heal. I know
Yeah.
that, reparations is a big thing as far as being able to be paid reparations, but, the acknowledgement, the awareness, just basically doing that work of healing and being able to, acknowledge the past so
Right.
that we can heal, our futures. Because, as a people, as a Black people, we're gonna we can't completely unify unless we have the healing.
Well, and I do want to say, as far as education, back to that, I think that'll be a humongous component towards the healing, because
Mhm.
if you understand that you come from powerful people, powerful
Mm,
stock, you
mm,
understand the history of who built even the
Amen.
pyramids, and who were
mm,
these geniuses throughout time and history. We don't learn that in our schools. And so a lot of
mm,
us are transferring things from our schools to our homes that we've learned and teaching our children. So we have to
mm,
pick
Absolutely.
up external books and create our own libraries in order to understand just
Hmm.
how dynamic our
mm,
lineage is. And I think once we do that, then healing can begin, because I believe
mm,
it comes from identity. Like, I
Mm.
think
mm.
that's a big component of healing, the power of identity.
Well
Yeah.
said. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here. I agree 100%. And then also just with the healing aspect, that what you said about educating yourself and knowing who we
Hmm.
are as a people was exactly, I feel like, going back to the movie, how you left with that sense of pride again. I
Yeah.
saw the comments where, women were just like, or just people in general saying, that they left with a sense of reconnection,
Hmm.
reconnection to who we are as a people, that strength, that beauty, that power,
Yeah.
and again, unifying, because I mean the movie did really well the first
Yeah.
opening weekend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it was
Yeah.
yeah.
definitely a success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We are
That,
definitely a group of people, Black women,
Hmm.
women of color. I won't even just keep it at Black women, but women of color, we are definitely a group of people that get the short end of the stick in various scenarios when it comes to representation. And let's talk about some of the things in the news that when we talk about that intersectionality, the unfair treatment. I think Kimberly, you have some statistics too when it comes to finance. So when it comes to being able to go into a movie theater or read a book or what have you, where you see yourself represented and with pride, you think about The Little Mermaid and how the young girls now, the young children are able to see themselves represented on television and on platforms that previously we would not. It does do something to your
Representation
sense of,
matters.
your sense of confidence, your sense of
Yeah.
loving yourself.
I think one thing.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Well, I
Kenya.
was just going to add, I think one thing that it does is, we only believe in a thing only exists if we believe in it. And so if we keep saying, I am cursed by generational curses, you will continue to be cursed by generational curses.
Right.
Right. And so I think what
Speak life.
happens with things like The Little Mermaid or what's the most recent movie we were just talking about?
The Woman
Woman
King.
King.
The Woman King.
Now that education, that life in portrayal on TV, on the screen, allows us to feel a certain way or a different way about these curses that have been placed in our lives. And I think for me, it's a mindset shift of it doesn't have to be a curse for me any longer.
Right.
As long as I change my mindset, I change my language and my verbiage around it, whatever I say, it is, regardless of if society shows it to me or not. And I think we've been waiting for these things to portray that we're great and that we are able, but we've always been capable. We've always been capable. I think the trauma healing part is because society continues to place barriers for us to grow in the way that we know we can grow. But
Absolutely.
And I think,
And I think again with adding to that, that's where the representation matters, because I'm tired of seeing slavery movies. I don't know about y'all, but
yes, I am too.
that was another thing. It's like, the representation of what we see, the story that we tell, the narrative that we are able to share, all that matters, because if we continue to keep just seeing us as slaves, that what kind of message is
You
that
live in
sending?
a slave
Yeah,
mentality.
we live in a slave mentality.
Well, I agree and I disagree, because I think we have to have both. Because my
Me
concern, if
too.
we don't tell the story of slavery, it will be forgotten, and then we're going to get into a cancel culture who wants to cancel that storyline and say it didn't happen. It's just like it didn't happen the way you all or your generation or your grandparents told you. It's just like the civil rights. So I think there has to be a balance. You have to tell the truth, but you also have to show what you came from to what was trying to be robbed from you. We're in a society. We're in a society now where the cancel culture is serious. Like like Halle Bailey, she was. I mean, they went after this young girl for being the Little Mermaid. I mean, to attack
a
her.
fictional character.
A fictional character, Kimberly. It is just unthinkable that people would rise up and try to counsel that the Woman King council. I mean, people are rising up. That's not right. That's accurate. Like, it is so important that as women and women of color, it goes back to what Kenya said. You're going to have people who are going to try to destroy your message and representation of what you look like. Everybody doesn't like the way Lizzo looks and what she wears. But here's the thing. Lizzo is the first, I wouldn't say the first, but because Monique to me is the one that came out and was full figured and gave praise to it. But what Lizzo's done, and I'm not a big Lizzo fan in terms of music, but I will say this: Lizzo has set a seed of acceptance for someone who doesn't look like anybody else but just like her.
Yeah. And the word that comes to me is just being intimidated. We can just be intimidated by one another, and then we bash instead of embrace the differences of them. I've learned that we have to determine our lives and align our lives with what we're wanting. And,
Mm.
you know, as women of color or just women in general, we have to ask ourselves some core questions. And, you know, the importance of that is so that you know where you're going. So you have to set goals for yourself. You have to set plans for yourself. And you have to know the role that you are agreeing to take on in your life. And through all of that, to me, that's where the reward comes from.
Yeah.
And then we get to see all of these opportunities that people are showing us because they're confident. And, you know, people who are not confident are
Mhm.
insecure, and they
Mm.
try to bring insecurity into your energy. And we just have to be mindful to say, you know, this is how you're feeling about that, but I know what I'm aligning myself up to do
Mhm.
and be for my life. And these different films now are really showing those things. So
Mhm.
I'm just excited about the growth
Mhm.
that we
Mm.
are witnessing, because we're witnessing growth from where we have come from in a
Mhm.
mighty way that we have never seen before.
Mhm. And Mickey, you brought up cancel culture. You know, that's actually, you know, this whole kind of big thing that's going on right now with Tiffany Haddish. I don't know if you guys.
But before we move forward to that, can we
Okay.
read this comment real quickly from David
Okay.
Scott Gibson, and then we can wrap that up. The reason slavery depictions are important is because whatever has happened is proof that it can happen. We need to remember that. So I think
Mm.
that's a great way to
Yeah.
sort of close out that conversation. And
Mhm.
you go ahead on Dion with what you were saying. That's such a great comment. Thank you,
Yeah, I was just
David.
saying that, you know, we was talking about cancel culture and just, you know, how that's just such a huge movement. You know,
Yeah.
that skit came out with Tiffany Haddish and Aries Spears. And I don't know, do we have the clip? We had a
We
clip
don't have the
or
kid, but we have a
We have
post
the
of what she
image.
talked about,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, the
image
okay.
of
image.
what she talked about being canceled.
Yeah, and so now she's just saying that she lost everything. You know, so just is that fair? You know, because I think Aries Spears is in Raleigh tonight.
He
And so
he
his
is.
his show
He
is going
is.
the show goes on for him. I
Well,
mean,
Hmm.
that's that
or
intersectionality. That's
That's
that
it.
mhm,
Right. Right.
that's the reason why we're having this
Exactly.
conversation, because then you have, so Aries doesn't seem to be as effective. He's not as big of a star either to that point, but he's a male and he doesn't
Right.
seem to be as, his career as affected. And probably you think about Brett Favre as well. So he's
mm,
a white male who nobody even
mhm.
really know, probably
It's
is,
hardly in the news
as I'm
right now.
saying
It's
that,
like
people
not
are
even
like,
being
what
talked
Brett,
about.
yeah, like what Brett
Mhm.
Favre. I always do that because there's
Mhm.
Brett
something
Favre.
movie. There's something about
Yeah.
Mary.
Ours.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember that. He was like
Yeah.
Favre. But anyway,
Favre. Brett
Favre.
Favre.
Yeah, but yeah, him like stealing all that welfare money, and it's like
Money.
In
nobody's
Mississippi
hearing
of all
about it.
places.
Yeah,
Right.
and
But
nobody's
then,
hearing
but
about
what
it.
about Nia Long and like Will
Yes.
Smith and Jada? Like that's different too, though, right?
Hmm.
Will Smith got a bunch of flack. Nia Long is getting the all poor Nia Long, but Will Smith didn't get that.
True.
That's a
Yep.
So
good
there's
Yeah.
point.
that. I'm
Yeah,
not
True.
playing
that's a good
devil's
point.
advocate, but you know, I'm just
Right.
saying.
Right. But
I think I
I
missed that
think
story. What happened with Nia Long? What you mean?
Her husband
her,
cheated on her with a
her.
staff
Yeah.
member.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
the
So
Boston
I know that
Celtics.
part.
Yeah.
No,
What's
she's
the?
saying that
Well,
Nia Long
they're
is
just
getting support, and it's like, you
yeah
know, everyone's crying out for,
Mm.
for
you know, because
her and
I'm mad, I'm
Oh,
hot.
but
You
Will
know, Nia
Smith
okay.
Long
didn't
is
get
Yeah,
right,
That's
Will
my
support.
Smith
right.
I
got
got it. I got it.
ridiculed.
Hey,
He got
Yeah,
laughed at. Okay.
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I'm a
Well,
little
It's
let
like,
me say
slow.
this real quick. How you cheat on Nia
how
Long?
you
She was
cheat
the
I
on Nia
know.
Long?
Like,
chick of
but
the
but
90s.
that just
What?
shows you
Long?
that
Come
nobody is exempt
on.
from getting cheated
It's
Nobody is
on.
Nia.
exempt. That's
Anybody
so
can
Amen.
get
true.
cheated
It's Nia
on.
Long. It's Love Jones,
Anybody
Nia
can get
Long.
Nia
Like,
cheated
Long,
on.
like what?
Neil
please
Long.
help
I don't
me.
know.
But you know, we
There's
had this
no hope
discussion.
left for us.
Right,
We
right,
got Nia
right.
Long, we got
What?
I'll be doggone.
Beyonce, we got
Right.
okay,
It's
yeah.
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
had this conversation behind the scenes about Tiffany Haddish, and I was furious. Like I told
Yeah.
Dion, I was so furious. I think I went on a 15-minute rant about it
Yeah, you
because
definitely did.
I was so mad because I was so mad because she
You was
had a
mad.
special that was supposed to come out on Netflix, which I was really looking forward to. And anybody that I don't get paid for this part.
Wait,
But
you were mad that she got canceled?
She got canceled.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I'm trying to clarify what you were mad about.
No, she got canceled. And I was, first of all, let's talk about the allegations have been dropped. That's the first thing. Okay. So the woman has pulled back the allegations. But
wait,
now,
were the allegations dropped or did they settle?
No, they dropped it. She dropped it. Yeah.
Oh.
Allegations have been dropped.
Yeah.
The thing is, it goes back to transparency. In her book, the Last Black Unicorn, she talks about the trauma that she's received and some of the choices. She even took some accountability, saying this skit may not have been the best choice of things I should have done, or maybe we could have done it a little bit different, but it's not what I'm being accused of. Okay. So now the allegations have been dropped. Aries is still doing his thing, his booking. I went on his website and he's still taking bookings. I said, what is this? Like, and then for Netflix to drop her under allegations that have not been proven, it infuriated me. It infuriated me.
I mean, I could imagine now that it's been dropped.
I don't know. And it's one of those things that goes back to what Kimberly said is intersectionality is the mistreatment of women of color, as though, oh, we'll just counsel her and it's okay. She doesn't, she doesn't have to prove herself. We're going to make the decision for her based on an allegation. But isn't that what Black women have to deal with in the corporate world, Kenya, in television and business? I mean, you're in television, you're in entertainment, you know this firsthand. But isn't that the culture within that industry, that Black women really don't have power at all? We may see faces and voices, but do we really have? But do they still have the power?
I just attended a conference all day today that talked about that very thing, about how Black women have been suppressed in corporate America for so long that we're now finding our voice, but we're still afraid to speak up. Lisa, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine. No.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add to what Kimberly was saying. I think the collaboration is what will bring the strength for the Tiffany's type situations and stories, just as we're doing now, being able to be a voice and just say enough is enough, and help the world to see that the treatment, the behavior, the trauma is really hypocritical, because that's all I'm hearing, really is just being a hypocrite. One can do it, one cannot. So
I think it would also help if she would come out and actually make a statement as well. I mean, I know that she did I think she did. Did she make a statement recently?
Yeah, she did. But I think to Lisa's point of collaboration too. Now, and I don't know if anybody's going to raise your hand at this part, but when the news comes out and we give out those first opinions, that feeds that cancel culture. I mean, so if we could stand behind our sisters and say, hey, we don't know all the story. We
That's
blah,
a
blah,
good
blah,
point.
blah, blah.
That's a good
because
point.
when it first came out, I saw a bunch of Black women not standing behind Tiffany, saying,
that's what it is.
That is
blah,
true.
blah, blah,
That is true.
not having the whole story. We'll do that quick. And so to the point of collaboration, and I'm not saying that I didn't know the story, so I made no comment. And that's sort of my stance a lot of times, to see how things unfold. But that's not how we're made, especially in America. We got to have some commentary. So that's one of the conversations, the things to collaboration we could sort of try to stand behind this, wait for the details of the story, and then say, you know what, I'm gonna wait and see what happened with my sister.
But that's true. I think that's a good point, because I can say I was a little guilty of that. The hard part with that is that there was a skit, and you saw the skit, you saw the parts that they were playing. So I think that was actually really hard. But you do make a good point, because how long did the community actually back R. Kelly?
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Like
a long time.
Like,
still backing R. Kelly.
Playing R. Kelly right now. Like,
and we'll tell you, I'm still gonna be stepping in the name of love.
Like, when he come out, they're gonna buy his ticket.
Annoys me.
To go. No,
Go ahead,
I was just going to
Kenya.
say real quickly, knowing how social media can cause wildfire to spread, this person's objective could have just been that, to just
Right.
spoil her name, even though there
Right.
was no merit to what she was saying. She had a
That's fact.
vendetta, and she could have just said, you know what, social media on its own will destroy her, and look at what it did. That's all.
And look
That's
what it
all
Yeah.
they
did.
really
Well,
needed,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
her initial statement, and Dion and I had this really depth conversation about it because I saw the skit, and I took it for what it was. I took it exactly for what it was. I know as a comedic, some things don't land well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And comedians kind of get a listen. That's the great thing about it being a comedian. They can say things and do things that normal people did, because that's comedy is
None
funny
more.
from pain and in situations, right? So when I
Mhm.
first saw it, I was like, yeah, may
Mhm.
not have should have done that, did I think of her as a predator? Absolutely not. Like, of course, I
What?
don't know all the things behind the scenes, but she said it was a bad taste. It didn't land well. It was, I should have thought about it. And then she said, but I can't talk any more detail. Why isn't that enough support as for a black woman to say,
Yeah.
listen, I need your support. I need this. She didn't say, it won't me. Y'all get over it, blah, blah, blah. She took accountability, and it just infuriated me
Well,
about how people were
yeah.
attacking her.
Parents just
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
look at the intersectionality of sexism, racism, colorism, which is, within racism and classism. And that's one of the reasons why she didn't get that. I mean, it's just not, first of all, she's a celebrity, so she's gonna get tossed, as soon as possible. That's just how that culture works, I think, as soon as something happens in the media. But then secondly, she's a black woman who is a comedian who says what she wants to say, right?
But
On
look at
stage,
Right.
Dave
whether we like it
Chappelle.
or not.
That's
Yeah,
my
But
and
Dave
point,
whether
Kenya.
Chappelle,
That's
whether
my
Dave
point,
Chappelle
Kenya.
went on and on about the LGBTQ community, and yeah, he got a little flack about it, but he didn't get
uh-huh.
canceled.
That's my
Right.
Yeah.
point, Kenya.
But
So,
That's
that's
why I
you
was
but
so
that's
know,
my
so
point
outraged.
too about the
yeah.
intersectionality. That's the whole point of all of this. Like,
Yeah.
it is different for a black woman. It is.
Woman.
You just said
With this.
Dave Chappelle was a different situation. I mean, we could go
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on about
That's
how
true.
so many black men, and not to say that they don't get, persecuted too, or
Yeah.
anybody, but
Yeah.
like, things happen, somebody cheat, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, well, he's a man, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just a
To.
different sort of,
Pass. It's a
yeah,
pass. It's a
it's
pass
a
for bad
different sort of
behavior.
standard. So,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Kimberly, you
Yeah.
brought up the intersectionality of women in entertainment, but then also we were talking about business, and so how that whole that whole sort of saga can trickle through various cultures, whether it's on the job, whether it's in business, wherever it is, and have an impactful
Mhm.
scenario to explode within that. So we got
Mhm.
to be aware of it in our own look at ourselves, and then those who
Mhm.
are around us. We have to make them aware of this. Like, this is truly really happening, and
I
Mm-hmm.
agree.
this is why and how, and let me show you the differences. And so
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
we got to take our
Mhm.
time in this matter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's
one
bad.
thing I
My
like. Oh,
goodness.
I'm sorry. I'm
No, go
sorry.
ahead. Mm-mm.
Okay. One thing that I am reminded of when I'm talking to people in general, in order to be understood, you must understand.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you don't understand someone, then you're going to kind of put them in a situation like Tiffany got in.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go
Hmm.
into her intentions of her why. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's what we have to research, the why of things, and then have that understanding, and then we can move forward with a clear
Mhm.
mind instead of
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
much judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
and and deal with our own implicit biases, and that was
Our
something that
own
we
biases.
we can't
Right.
dive into deeply. But yeah,
Mhm.
what experiences have helped to even make us have responses that we don't, when we look back on them, we say, kind of like to your point, Dion, a moment ago, like, you know what, I probably should have handled this. I mean, we can all handle this a little
Mhm.
different, right? We can
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
all do that and say, what are our implicit biases in these particular scenarios when it comes to somebody who looks like me?
Mhm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
we evaluate that, back to your point, Lisa, and understanding what our
Mhm.
biases are, then we can make better choices and have that accountability to move forward. That reminds me, Kenya, of our show that we did, the ethos of a Black woman, and just
Yep.
some of the conversation that came up there. And so even within our own culture and our own race and our own, I'm going to say women of color as opposed to just
Yeah.
Black women in America,
Mhm.
but just taking a look at our own implicit biases will help us to develop and grow.
But I
Indeed. And
think
does
I
Yeah.
think I think one of the things, it, even though we're talking about women of color, but specifically Black women, I think we have to really deal with the redefining what oppression is, because when you are paying Black women, well, I think it's like 64 cents to the dollar versus her counterparts.
74 cents.
Yeah, 74
Yeah.
cents. White
Yeah.
males, 78 cents. That's
Mhm.
oppression. That's a
Mhm.
form of
Mhm.
oppression. And if
Yeah.
Mhm.
we don't see that as oppression, we have to change that narrative. That is oppression, because in my research, you have 75% of Black women who are head of households.
Mhm.
75% in comparison to other women of color and white women. They are 75% head of households. So when you don't pay them equally to those of their other counterparts, even if it's other women of color, that is oppression. You're keeping a generation of mothers who cannot take care for their children, who cannot succeed wealth, pass on wealth. That is a level of oppression, and we
Mhm.
really need to think about that in that aspect.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
and with doing that, we
that's what
just continue
Sept
to
said.
tell. Yeah, and with doing that, we just continue to tell our stories. We continue to share our experiences. We continue to speak out when we're trying to be oppressed and not be heard. So that
Yeah,
we
and
can
all of
continue
these
to overcome that.
absolutely. And all of these things are under that word of oppression, racism,
Mm-hmm.
sexism, colorism.
Yeah.
It's all, it all leads to some form of
Of
that
oppression.
essentially.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And
Mhm.
so
Right.
we would love to continue on
Right.
with this conversation, you all. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Any last comments, you all? And we definitely want to thank our guest co-host, Coach Lisa Beckwith, for
Yay.
joining us this
Yay.
evening. And we
Yes,
welcome
thank you,
you
Lisa.
to return
My pleasure.
again to that seat. So thank you. But any last comments from any of you? We'll start with Lisa and go around.
Well, I'm just full right now, and I am appreciative of this opportunity. And I just do hope that people will like and share and just have more of an understanding about things so that we can continue to walk in love and flow.
Yes, I love it. And Dion or Kimberly or Kenya?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I think that, first and foremost, it was just so much power in this segment today, just the different women that we talked about and just the movement that we have right now with this movement of inspiration and power and strength. So let's just continue to keep that going, to continue to study, learn. We talked a lot about researching and making sure that we are doing our best to, find out our truths and to continue the movement, continue that movement of inspiration, power, strength, and, of course, love.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll go next. I think, the main thing that probably stood out to me the most is the need for educating our children around a lot of these topics, because, we're here, we're learning, we're growing, but our kids are the ones that are going to take forward this work and pass it down to their children. And, although we may not be equipped to give them all of the nuggets of knowledge, we need to empower them to find that knowledge and to now collaborate with their peers and to understand what collaboration really means, so that they don't have to continue to suffer having these conversations over and over and over again when
Yeah.
they're our age, right? There'll be different conversations of growth, conversations of development, of seeing a new wave of treatment of one another. So
Kimberly?
Yeah, I love what Kenyon said about education. I definitely want to charge everybody. This is a midterm election year, and don't just vote. sit down with your kids and talk to them about why you're voting for who you're voting for. Do your research, regardless of what party. Fight for injustice. I mean, this is the time for your senators, your representatives, your local governments. So I just really want to encourage everybody to do their due diligence and vote this midterm election. Sit down with your kids. Kenya, I just love that, because that was one thing my parents did. They never voted without, as a family. We sat down. My dad explained to us who was running for office, why, and we voted. We had a vote at the house before he actually went to vote,
Oh,
or
that's
my mom
beautiful.
would vote. And we had little sheets of papers, and he'd write it down and he explained to us, and we'd all vote. Silly reasons why we voted, but at least we voted. And he
Yeah.
and instilling your children, voting is important. Your voice matters in this government. And if we're going to change oppression, if we're going to change the storyline, if we're going to make a difference, it's going to be how we vote for women, how we vote for people of color, how we vote for injustice. So please go out and vote.
Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And I echo what all of you ladies have said. I echo everything that you just said, especially in relation to our children. And one of the things that I want you all to think about, and we'll probably have to continue this conversation in a drip. I want everybody to really think about some of the things that we talked about and how you have played a role in the cancel culture. How have you played a
Yes.
role in these racism, sexism, colorism, the different things that are plaguing America that we want to fight against? How have you played a role? Because when you know better, as the saying goes, you can do better. And so how can we collectively be accountable to our actions so we can then change them and move forward? Because I think we can absolutely create a new story, but we have to first believe that we can do that. So I
Amen.
challenge the belief as well. Do you truly believe that change can happen? And I
Right.
believe all of us here do. And that's why we go out and vote. And that's why we talk about and study these subjects. And that's why we have this platform, so that we can have these crucial conversations. Shameless plug of Kenya's podcast. It just kind of fell out of my mouth. But crucial conversations with you all. So thank you for joining us, especially on a Saturday evening. As Lisa mentioned, please share this with someone else. Catch the replay. If you came in late, yes, this was a very intriguing, interesting conversation, and I'm so proud to be a part of this cast. So
Yeah.
proud to work
Can I
alongside
add a
these
shameless plug?
ladies. Yes. Oh, and we
So
have a
we
couple of announcements too. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting that we have in this conversation. Well, we went this direction because yesterday, this weekend's Black Issues Forum episode talks about African-centered learning, DEI, and racial justice within education, and how do we educate our kids on these topics but with still instilling in them pride for their color. So you can find that on PBS or UNC TV on YouTube or on PBS.org.
I love that.
Nice.
Nice.
And there
Yeah.
are documentaries and different things like that. Sophie and I, we sit down. She finds them now. It was something I introduced, and now she loves sitting down and looking for those things, those educational opportunities. She's reading the news just as much as I am. And so,
That's
to your
awesome.
point, Kenya, these, sitting down and talking with our children about these things. But there's a couple of, so Dion is going to be speaking at a brunch. I think we have the flyer in promotions. Yeah. Dion, Fit
Mhm.
for a Queen Women
Yeah, so if
Awareness
anybody's
Month.
interested, come out and join us. Yes, it's going to be right in the local community. So it's
Yes.
a great opportunity to bring your mom out for breast cancer awareness month, and to support the community and to just talk about some self-care topics. So
So
yeah,
awesome.
if you're free, come out and join us.
And make sure to follow Dion so that you can get the information as to how to register. Also, I want to shout out Industry Image, who is our brand designer. He does all of our flyers, much of our graphics, behind the scenes, the logo, all of that. So we've been partnering with him since the very beginning. If you notice, the logo just changed for this particular closing segment. So check out Industry Image for all of your brand design needs. We are are in love with our relationship with Industry Image. Shout out to Mastermind Productions, Basement to Balcony, Ken Branson, who is our production team, a part of our production team. Ken is amazing and just always sort of there with a lending hand and has been there since the beginning, off and on. And so we really, truly appreciate Ken as well, Ken Branson of Mastermind Productions and Basement to Balcony. And then lastly, November to December, I will be doing a 4-week cohort. Those weeks will be broken up into bi-weekly, but I will be doing a 4-week cohort of the debt detox. And so this win shop, which on this one it says workshop. I think I may have given the wrong flyer, but you got the information. It's going to be $119 for that 4 weeks. So please reach out to me at Kimberly Winborn, Kimberly W at KimberlyWinborn.com, or just go to KimberlyWinbornLLC.com to gain more information on the workshop. It comes with the book, which is published on Amazon, the book, as well as the notebook. And we're going to be tackling end of year budgeting, emergency fund savings, credit basics, wealth building strategies. We're going to tackle the mindset. We've been talking about mindset here, but to gain that winning financial mindset. And there's going to be some accountability to help you achieve your goals. So the debt detox workshop the beginning of November, and it's going to go to like mid-December. So reach out to me for more information.
So we can get this generational wealth.
We can gain it.
Yes.
We deserve it.
Yes.
That's a whole other that's a whole other
That's
topic.
a whole nother story.
Right. But as many of us have echoed here throughout the evening, we are powerful. We are dynamic. We are beautiful. Women of color, Black women, we have overcome so much, and we can do anything that we put our minds to. Every woman on this planet, Black, white, whatever, needs to hear that you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are dynamic, you are amazing, you are capable. And we don't hear that enough in our society, this global patriarchy, especially in America. So I just want to share that as we close out, because we are all about love, ladies of vision and empowerment and flow. So you all have an amazing rest of your Saturday evening. Thank you to my lovely co-hosts. We love you all. Shout.
Happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes, happy Hispanic. How did we forget that?
You would know that.
It started on the 15th. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Bye.
Night,
Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Should have played some merengue going out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We could
yeah.
have ended with some salsa.